Okay, moving on from the video we did last time, we should have got up to this point now where we've got the eyes in place, connected to our muzzle mask, which is also connected to our lip mask. And we also brought out the top of the forehead to start to begin the process of making this back cranium section. And we also started bringing out the eyes to start making the edge flow, which is going to get sent around to the back of the head and into the ears and stuff. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to actually lay in the beginning geometry for the neck. I think at this point it's good that we start getting these major landmarks in there that will give us a better understanding about what we're looking at, and it won't get as confusing if we're just trying to build a neck out of nothing. So using our trusty cube again, I'm going to go into my front view and just shift click drag out a cube, make sure that's in the middle of the world. So you go translate X is 0, and into my side view I'm just going to start to just move that into place. So I'm going to start using my vertex and the very top of the cube, these 2 points, I'm going to start arranging a lot like this. So I'm not trying to get the perfect neck in there at the minute, I'm just trying to get a major landmark in there for me to understand what I'm modelling against. And then from the front view I can start to just either scale in or scale out depending how my cube matches up with the reference. And of course I'm going to take the top and the bottom off this, so that when we subdivide it we're not going to get a weird sort of pillow shape, we're just going to get the edges of this subdivided nicely into 8. So with that like that, I'm going to hit subdivide, which remember is in our polygon shelf in our second group of menus, it's the 4th one in. Click that and then we're going to get this shape here, and I'm just going to keep divisions as 1. So now I can start to well, generally now we've got our beginning of our neck shape. Of course our subject has got a very wide neck, it's got a very broad neck, so we want to make sure that our shape is nice and broad like this. And what I can do now is just start to shape it a little bit. I mean, I'm not looking to get this absolutely perfect just yet, or at all, because our main focus beginning is just getting the face looking okay. Okay, so at this point I'm going to delete half the neck as well, and then do my duplicate special. Now remember when we're doing our duplicate special, we need to make sure that the manipulator is in the center of the world and in the center of our object. So for instance, if my manipulator was over here and I did my duplicate special, we'd be flipping like this, and obviously that's not what we want. So if my manipulator was around there, I would have to hold D and V. Well, first off, I'd have to make sure that my vertex are in the middle of the world. For instance, if my vertex were off to the side, I would have to move those so they align with the thick grey or thick black line in the middle of our scene, like that. And then I will hold D and V. Remember, D moves our manipulator, V snaps the vertex, V for vertex. I'm going to just move that to the center of the world like that. So now I can run my duplicate special, making sure that if we go back into our options that I've got geometry type set to instance and scale in the first box set to -1, so that whatever I do on, oops, I double duplicated then. So whatever I do on one side happens on the other, and that's the function of the instance that we applied. So with that in place, we're going to ignore our neck for the while, because we're done with it for the time being. So now I'm just going to grab a face on the bottom of our chin here, and I'm just going to drag it back. So grab that edge and move it back to about where the neck meets there. So now we're starting to complete the distance between the chin and the gullet. So we definitely know that this edge meets up with this edge. And then from the back, I'm just going to grab this center edge here and bring that all the way back to where the neck ends there, so that we know that that is definitely in place for later on. So now we should have something that looks like this. So our face, we've not touched our face at all yet. We're just working on the back of the cranium. So now I want to start adding the shape of the cranium. Following the reference provided. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself maybe 10 edges to work with here. So I'm going to limit myself to a strict amount of edges. If I can't get the shape of the skull with X amount of edges that I'm about to add, then I need to go back and add more. But I think 10 is going to be enough. So with our objects selected in object mode, like that, I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, Option Box, and then where it says make sure that multiple edge loops is selected, number of edges, set that to 10, so that's going to give us 10 edges in between our vertex, and then I'm going to add them there. So now that's added 10 going across there. And then from there I can start grabbing, so I'm in my side view, I'm literally dragging a selection box over groups of vertex, and I'm going to start outlining the skull, making sure that I'm keeping a even distribution of edges, so I'm not having big gaps between edges. I'm keeping everything nice and equal, or as equal as possible. So I might get to a point where I'm thinking, right, I've not put enough in a certain area, then I have to rearrange my edges a bit more, but it looks like we're okay, pretty okay. Okay, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of rearranging. Okay. So back here, make sure I'm in vertex mode. So I'm just going to start shifting everything up a little bit. Like this. Just moving everything a little bit forward. Now, our subject does have hair, so I'm not going to trace the hair. I'm going to try and imagine what the base of the skull looks like. And that's what I'm thinking there. And obviously if I look at this now, we have got, well, the way that I've laid this out, we have got this little bit of an indentation there. So I want to go in and fix that straight away, so that our skull is sloping downwards instead of sloping away. But not a crazy slope, because obviously the top of the skull is more flat than it is super curved. So it might be worthwhile just looking at references of skulls if you've got access to an anatomical skeleton or a skull. Just looking at that, see how it works. Or even just using your own skull. Feel the point at the top of the head and trace your finger round to the side. The best reference is ourselves. You know, we've all got skulls, so I might as well use that. So that's the shape of our skull in there, and we've also got the shape, the kind of the journey from our chin down to our gullet. I'm actually going to add one edge loop inside here, so I can just get a bit of indication of a chin. So I'm just going to set my insert edge loop to 1, and then move that, and just get an idea of our chin in there, like that. Okay. So now I'm going to do a save at this point, because I've done a lot of work here. I've got a lot of major landmarks in there, and I don't want to, just in case, I don't want to lose anything. So I'm going to do a save. So the next thing we're going to do is start to create the upper section of the skull. And this is where we actually get to control a lot of our vertex, or of our edge flow, I should say. Because looking at our model right now, if we just keep sending these edges round the skull to the back, they're going to get to a point where they're going to meet. You might have 8 or 10 or even like 5 edges coming into the back of the neck, and you might only have room for 1 or 2 edges to meet inside there. And what you don't want to do is start adding edges in the back of your neck just to facilitate edges of your head, the edge flow of your head. So what we need to do is that we need to actually terminate. I call it terminating edges. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to send edges flowing around the side of the head. So if you look at our reference here, flowing around the side of the head, up across the cranium, and then kind of we're turning the edges into itself at the top of the skull. So I'm going to choose a place that I'm going to start to turn these edges into, and I'm going to choose about here in this vertex, this edge here. And quite simply, I'm going to just select those two edges. So and I'm also going to bring it out of this. I'm going to start to bring these edges out of this eye socket, this eye edge flow here. So I'm only using these top 4, and I'm going to use this to start to kind of terminate my edge flow. So if I bridge that, we've now got, it looks a bit weird at first, but what we're doing here is we're placing definite edges into our model. We definitely know where this edge flow is going to go. So I've just added that division in there. So we just added that edge flow in there, and inside our division, inside our bridge box here, when we do a bridge, I'll just do that again. So when we do a bridge, we get this box up here. I've just made mine a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. I'm going to add one division here in the top, like so. Yours might turn green like mine is. All you have to do, if it turns green, it's just Maya struggling to associate materials with geometry. There's nothing wrong with the actual, you've not done anything wrong, it's just Maya playing about. So if that does happen, just hold down right click, go to existing material, assign existing materials, and choose Lambert 1. We should only have one material, and do that to the side as well. Like so. So with this new division here, we can then start to dictate where the main side of the skull is, like where the side of our skull would be, to where it then bends into the top of our skull. And that's what we're doing here with this edge. So looking at our skull now, I want to have our bend of our skull like here. You can almost see on this reference as kind of like an orbit, or a kind of like a circle moving around the skull, going up from the top of the eyebrows around where the hairline is, and then back where these tattoos are, almost like a circle. So I'm going to bring this edge up to about here at first. I might move it later on. I'm just trying to get a good idea about placement first. And then from the front, I'm going to move that out so that it's lining up with the skull a little bit better, like so. Like so. So with that, I can now start to send these edges at the front back into this point, and we've actually terminated an edge here so that we won't have as many edges heading backwards. Okay, and what we might want to do as well is actually do the same thing with this edge here. So this forehead section we've got here, we can actually send this edge, this, into this, give it one division, and then just do the exact same thing. So that we're starting to turn those 3 edges into only 2 edges coming out around the back of the skull, which is much more manageable than having to deal with 6 or 8 or however many edges we're sending backwards. And this is also a good reason why we work low poly, so that we don't have 20 or 10 edges to deal with. Rather, we've got like 2 or 3. So at this point, I just want to fix this hole I've got here, and I've given myself. And I'm going to use our cut tool here in our top polygon shelf. We've got this little scalpel with the 3 dots next to it. This allows me to cut across geometry like that. So I've just clicked 2 edges and I've just cut geometry in. And if I hold Control, it actually shows me the lines I can make. So I can actually just go around my model and it'll show me all the different lines I can make. Now I just want to add one edge on this strip. Not this one, just this one here. And I'm going to add it about here. And I'm going to add 2 as well. So that way I'm actually giving myself vertex points that I can then merge together here to start to seal off a hole on my head and start to just complete the shape of the cranium a little bit more. And then I can just move stuff around to fit our geometry a bit better, like that. Nice. Now from here, some of you more observant people might have noticed that we've got these 3 edges here. So if I just grab my insert edge loop tool and change this multiple edges to 3. Oh, I forgot actually to merge these 2 points as well. So I'm going to grab them 2 points and merge them. So again, I'll go grab my insert edge loop tool, make sure it's set to 3, because I'm looking at these 3 edges here. I'm going to place those in there. And if I'm looking at the front here, I've got these 2 edges and I've got the 1 division in between them. And if I put 1 division here, then we should start to see what is going to happen. So I can grab these 4 edges and these 4 edges and I can do a bridge. Oops, something's not working. These 4 edges and these 4 edges. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of a oh, is that because of it? There we go. So I didn't have an edge selected then, unfortunately. So do my bridge, and there we go. And in divisions, I'm going to add 1 just to split it in half, and then you can see that this edge is running all the way through now. I just have to merge a couple of points like that. Oh, that's a bevel. So there we go. And then up here, just merge those 2 points there. So now that's my cranium, my top part of my skull pieced together, but it's not quite the right shape. So at this point, I'm just going to spend some time and rearrange the vertex one by one. Just go through and soften out and shape my skull a bit better. Because at the minute it looks like he's got some flat sections of his head, some planar sections of his head. So after a couple of minutes of just moving stuff around, that's getting a bit better. Obviously I can spend, you know, within theory as much time as I wanted to on this section, but I'm just starting to, all I wanted to do was just get the shape of the skull a bit nice, a bit softer. So that is a much nicer shape to work with later on when we're starting to connect our head to our neck and so on. Let's go through and fixing a few other things. Cool. So we can actually probably go in and start to connect our actual head shape to our neck shape. So what I'm going to do is actually add a couple of edge loops manually into our neck. So grabbing my insert edge loop tool, making sure that number of edges is set to 1. I always want to make sure that the multiple edge loops is set, because that will add a edge in between, equally in between 2 points. So it's not going to give me one weighted to one side or the other. It's going to give me one directly in the center, which is what I want, because what I want to maintain is an equal distribution of edges, nice and even going through our model. It's nice and even. So that way, when we start to do other things, we're working with a nice even edge loop, and we're not going to get any sort of issues with anything else. So it's all going to be good. So I'm just going to grab my head in vertex mode, and I'm just going to grab the edges at the back here, and I'm just going to snap the vertex to the corresponding edges at the back. And I'm just going to, for my own OCD, just rearrange that. And at the front, do the exact same thing. So grab the center, holding V, holding V, snap that to the neck, and then snap that to there. So there you go. I've got my neck aligned with my head, and I can just select both those objects, combine, and of course my duplicated special will disappear because I'm changing the genetic makeup of my my model, so that's okay. So with those combined, I'm just going to drag a selection box over everything, hit merge, and now these sections, my neck is one piece, and we're starting to complete the head. So we've got definite landmarks now. Our head is, you know, almost there. So now I can just do my duplicate special over. There we go. As you can see, if I just turn that off, our head is absolutely coming together. It makes complete sense. We can see the eyes, we can see a head, we can see a nose, we see a mouth. Obviously the mouth and the nose are missing a few little bits, but those are quite simple to put in. So what we can do at this point as well, because we're dealing with hollow eyes and stuff, is I'm just going to use a sphere, grab a sphere, and I'm just going to actually make an eyeball, kind of line it up with the reference as much as I can. I'm just going to drag out an eyeball and move it kind of into place like that. And then I can, using D to move my manipulator, and X to snap the grid. D and X. I can snap that to the middle of the grid there. So then I can run my duplicate special over to flip that over, and I've got both my eyes, and then I can combine those under one object. And then our character has eyes that we can start to actually, you know, just mentally give ourselves a more complete picture. And we're not just dealing at blank holes, which can, you know, kind of throw us off a little bit. So now at this stage I'm looking at my model and I'm thinking there's a couple of things I can start to bring out a little bit more. And one of them is going to be the nose. And just like we've done with the center of the head, I'm just going to bridge. I'm actually going to add one, well, first I'm going to add one division down here on the mouth. And I'm going to add a bridge there. Just one. Just to kind of like start to give some geometry to the front of our nose. And I'm just going to put you as one division at first. Reapply that material. There we go. And then bring to the front of the nose. And then from here I can just start adding equal divisions above and below to start to shape this nose. Of course our subject's got quite a shapely bulbous nose, so we want to make sure that we're getting those edges in there. I've just seen some nasty, there we go, fix that. Bring these edges back. If we look at our modeling wireframe, like that, there we go. And then one more here, just to give the other side of the nose. You know, and already just by adding that really simple nose, we can already, again, these really simple shapes, just giving us a better indication about what our character's going to look like. Underneath, I'm just going to bring these edges in a little bit and even them out because we've got our nostrils to deal with, or what we're going to put in place of nostrils anyway. So obviously the point underneath your nose isn't so broad where your nostrils are, it's a little bit condensed. So for now I'm going to leave that like that. And I'm actually going to start working on my upper mouth section here. So sending these edges into where they need to go. So I can just start to think about where I'm going to send these edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just like we've done with the chin and the back of the head, I'm going to make a big gestural piece of geometry to start to connect the top of my head down to the bottom of my chin. So we're almost making like a mask that we can like peel the face off from. So I'm going to look at my geometry here, and I'm going to use my best judgment and just do a little bit of rearranging just for now. So rearrange some edges to better suit the flow of the head and all that. And I'm going to take one of these edges, and like I said, I'm going to take it all the way down to the bottom of the chin using a bridge. And I'm going to take, so I start messing around here. I'm going to take this edge here. I'm going to take it all the way down to this chin here. Like I said, just doing one bridge. So I'm missing out the immediate eyebrow area, and I'm just going for much more of the forehead area. And just selecting that edge there, and then selecting the chin there, and then doing the bridge. It's actually giving me one division going from top of the, almost like where the temple is, all the way down to the front of the chin. I'm going to put one division inside there. So I've just split that in half. And in the side view, I'm going to move that and start to trace almost like the flow of the jaw, the outline of the jaw. Like so. And then from the side. From the front, sorry, not the side. I'm just going to move it out. Like so. And then this has given me, this is showing me that I need to just rearrange my geometry a little bit to better suit the flow of my object, of our character. Like so. I can go and do some proper cleanup later on. So, I've given myself the beginning of my mask, and what I'm also going to do now is using my insert edge loop tool, my unit set to 1. I'm going to start adding one division below and one division above, and just start again, just making the shape of the skull, you know, better fitting the shape of the skull, like so. So what I want to do now, looking at my model, is I want to create a bridge between this area here. But what will happen is I'll end up with a triangle at this point right here, and that's not what I want. So what I'm actually going to do is split the chin in two. So I'm going to cut this line in half. So I've just got that one part selected. I'm going to go up to Edit Mesh to detach. And then when I go back and click it again and move it, you can see that those two parts are detached. So I've gone in for I'll do that again. So you can see that these are definitely connected. Definitely connected. With that edge selected, make sure that it's an edge you've got selected. I'm going to go up to Edit Mesh and down to Detach, and then I'm just going to have to click that edge again to select one of the new edges, and then I can move that and see which one I've got hold of. So that's my bottom part of my chin. So I can just move them apart a little bit, like so. Now, really easy step now is I can just start to shape the skull a little bit more with these new edges I add in here. So shape that a little bit better. And then I can add a split right here. So my insert edge loop, put a connection there, and then I'm adding a split there. Now, some of you might see what is now presented to us, and that is the ability to do a straight bridge between these 6 faces, like so. There we go. And now again, we're starting to just fill out the form of our face a lot more, and start to really close these holes and start to make a lot of sense for our face. So I'm going to concentrate on filling out this cheek section more. So looking at this, what I might want to do is just put a division here, because that's a large area I've got there, a large open area. So now these become quite regular edges. The distance between them becomes more regular, I should say. And now I can start to think about where I'm going to send a lot of this information. And I might send, at first, you know, a lot of this is experimentation. So I might do something just to fill a hole, and then it'll be like, okay, I've done something, it doesn't make sense, I can go back and fix it later on. Or in fact, what I might want to do is just maybe that. Yeah, I could do that. So, with that done, I've now just, what I'm doing now is just sending these edges up into the side of my head. I can just put one division there and merge that into there. Then bridge there with 2 divisions and merge these like so. As you can see, I'm starting to just close the shape of the face very quickly, but always just taking a little bit of time, looking at my face, thinking what can I send to where, and how is that going to impact the edges of the face later on. So now, go back to my insert edge loop tool. I know that I've got 2 edges here. I can just start to close, and I might add more later on. But for now, I'm just trying to get these big shapes in there. That's all I'm really concerned with at the minute. Okay. So I'm just massaging some verts around, regulating these shapes, making sure that I've got no really pulled. So we've just had a bit of another recording fault in the video, so I just noticed I've not been recording for about 20 minutes. For some reason the recording has, I think it's got something to do with Maya running. The recording failed. Well, I've still got the recording, it just stops all abruptly. So I'll try and kind of recap where I was. I guess we were somewhere like here, where I was starting to get the, get rid of this. I was starting to get the more geometry in the face, sealing up the cheek. I actually ended up deleting a few faces and adding a few new edges in. I added a few around the mouth and around the chin just to give myself a bit more information, and so I can send out these edges in a much more appropriate way. So I'm coming out like the top of the mouth there. I actually split these faces in half here, which are here. I actually split them in half so I could get an extra edge in there to give myself, I'm basically splitting my edges. So I'm going to be sending one into the neck, and this one will be going into the ear. And then I start to rearrange edges. You can see here, this edge here is basically this edge here, and I'm sending that's riding the top of this edge here, so that's going into the side of the face. I started to bring up underneath the nose, start to make this shape. So I'm sending edges round and I'm connecting them here into this line. I'm basically sending this edge up into itself like that, and around like that. Ooh, zoomed in. And I've started to send those edges around there. That's basically about it. I've started doing the bottom of the neck, getting ready for there. I've added another edge loop in there. Need to kind of just fix those edges a little bit more. So yeah, I guess stop the video with what I was doing because I'm not quite 100% sure where it crashed, where it failed. So just flick between the 2 points of video. I'll put kind of like a cut mark in the video, so you know when it crashed when I actually get the video into the editing suite. Yeah, and just look at these things. I mean, if you follow the edge loops around, you can see that like I said, they are all still there. Oh, I actually split in between here as well. I split this edge apart there, just like we did with the bottom of the chin. I split that edge apart, detached it, I should say. So I've got I give myself an extra edge in between, which I sent into this, which then went up past the eye, underneath the eye, that way. So that's going to be going around to the back of the head and terminating back there. Right. Okay. So at this stage, I'm thinking about filling the holes of my nose. Trying to keep it as simple and as clean as possible. I might give the indication of some nostril. I'm probably not going to go and do an anatomically correct nostril because they're quite hard to do for beginners, and for that matter for people doing it a while. Nostrils are just a bit of a pain. Okay, fix a few other things so I can see. So if we look at this nose in the reference back here, what we want to do is think about the plane of underneath the nose. So think about where the nostrils are. That has like a flat plane. So right, what I might do is see if this works. I'm gonna basically bridge from here to here and start making a loop. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. There we go. Oh, I'm snapping to the wrong things. So I'm going to start moving these vertex and snapping them to, or at least moving them into places where they can just sit very close to this ring of edges. Like that. That's why it's not good to do it by eye. Try and be very careful how you place this thing, because I've just placed it in a bit wrong then. Okay. But for now I'm just going to think about my nose. So I'm going to close these gaps I've done before, so selecting the two vertex and merging them. Maya seems to be freaking out a little bit. Probably had something to do with the video crash. So just gonna get a basic shape of the nose there. Oh yeah, Maya's really starting to freak out now. So I'm gonna do a save, and then I'm going to close and reopen Maya. So this is what I've created for my nose. If we just bring in the last save, we should be able to compare and contrast what was done. Okay, there we go. So this edge here, I've actually sent that around into the front of the nose. I'm just going to get rid of this. There's a bit of jumping around there. There you go. I've sent around this edge and I've turned it into the nose there, but I've actually added one division across there as well. So actually rearrange the nose a little bit. Setting a connection around there. Like so. connected down to this one. Now this is going to be kind of strange at first. So you're thinking, what's he doing? Why is he doing all this? It's because I'm creating sort of like waypoints for my edge flow to go around. So now I'm looking at this flow which comes up from the middle of the nose into the bridge of the nose, which is created by taking these 2 points. Because I've just bridged across there. If I Z back, I'll show you. I've just bridged from this point to this point, and then I'm taking this edge here and just merging it up here. So what's happening now is I'm sending this edge flow around like that. Merging those. Okay. And moving stuff around, just adding an edge where I need it, because I'm looking here where I've sent the edge kind of from the bottom of the nose up, round and into the bridge of the nose. I'm going to do that by just sending these 2 edges into each other as a bridge, splitting that, and then merging that, and then filling this hole here. Now that can be a little bit confusing. Talking my way through it then, like re-explaining what I did, was a little bit confusing in itself. Noses are a little bit confusing. We're not looking for an anatomically perfect nose. As long as the nose isn't too creased and we've not got many pulled, or if any pulled edges. For this brief, we're just looking for the general shape of stuff. Because the more you model, the more you'll understand how to do more complex shapes. But as a cursory glance, that's definitely a nose. And we can do a few tricks just to define that nose a bit more as well. Cool. And if we did want to put nostrils in at a very basic, again, just a bit basic, see what his nostrils look like. Okay. We can just select these faces underneath, these 4 faces here. Do an extrusion and then just scale that in, because then we're creating a loop of edges here like that. And this is a very quick, cheap way of doing a nose. You know, and then you just move up. Well, then, no, sorry, and then you do another extrusion and then move that in. Like I said, that's a very cheap, quick way of doing a nose. For stylized characters, it's perfectly fine. For realistic characters that you're never really going to see inside the nose, that's fine, just to give a bit of indication. But the human nose, I would study, I would advise studying how it actually looks and how it's formed, because that knowledge will obviously help you make better noses in the future. Because there is a certain flow where it actually comes in through the side of the nose, round the top, and then into the nose. There's a little bit of a curve into the nose like that. Okay. So at this stage I would just start to go through and I'm going to combine both these objects into one for the next step and then merge. So it's all one solid object now. One big solid object. And just my own sake, soften the edges so I'm not getting a seam down the middle. Oh, I can see there I've got edges that haven't been sewn together or merged. What I'm seeing here is this sharp line here. That tells me that they've got some edges that haven't been merged. So I'm just going to select that area and merge it. And then those should disappear. No, they're not. They are not disappearing. Well, we'll deal with that later anyway. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start using the soft select tool just to start to almost sculpt some form into the face, because as I've been adding in these edge flows, I've been gradually moving the geometry around, but I have lost a little bit of the overall purpose to the shape. So one really cool tool that we have, let's get rid of this guy, is the inside this panel here on this top group of 4 on the top right. It's this furthest left. That's our modeling toolkit. And just part way down the first section, you've got symmetry, and then on that I'm going to turn Object X on. So you can see there that anything I do on one side is going to be moved on the other side. And what I'm going to do using the soft select is I'm just going to start making just very subtle big movements, trying to get the form into the face that I want. Because he has lost a little bit as I've been working on him. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Well, you know, you can go around and you can add more later on. Ooh, I'm going to fix that nose. So I'm going to bring the sides of the nose in a little bit because they're a little bit not right. So remember, for soft select it's just B. B for Bravo. So, you know, just work on this nose a little bit. It's not really doing it for me so much. I'm just going to try and shape it a little bit more. So if I go into the front view, I can actually see it's very much trace this as well. Not, I'm just worrying about. I'm worrying a little bit about the nose a little bit too much, so I'm gonna not do too much more to the nose, because I think I'm making it worse by meddling with it. So for now, I'm just gonna leave it like that, and I might come back, fix it later on. So from this stage now, it is really about just filling these holes, sending these edge flows. I've already got the edge flows set up, and getting the indication of a nose in there. Not a nose, sorry, an ear. And one way I found doing very simple ears is just getting something like a cube or a plane. Let's do a plane at first, and just very quickly just starting to get the general shape of our ear in there at first. Because remember, our ears are on a bit of a slant. They're almost flowing with jaws, as the jaws flowing round and up, and they kind of go at a bit of a diagonal. So if I've just got that panel, a little plane, I can move that into place, make it fit better to the form. And I'm just doing the really big basic shapes. Just move. If I let me delete half the model and do our lovely duplicate special. There we go. So just need to move that chin section in. So now it's just getting that ear in. As a square at first, and then if we do a subdivide, we can then start using these new edges to again just start to follow the very basic shape of the ear. And we're only going to do 2 subdivisions on this, so we're only going to add 2 sets of new edges because we don't want too much to work with. And I'm going to do another one like that. There we go, perfect. Now that's giving me a really nice shape to work with for the ear. Beautiful. Just like that. And for now that's perfect for the ear. Because we don't need it. Again, we're not modelling the whole interior of the ear because that's a very advanced thing to model. I advise studying it, and again, you know, having a crack in your spare time, just getting some reference and trying to model the ear, the internal of the ear. It's useful to know how to do, but in this assignment we're not going to bother doing it. So with that in place, I'm actually going to duplicate it backwards and flatten it out like this. Because what I'm going to do, oh, actually no, I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to take these edges here. Nope. I'm going to take all the external edges besides the ones at the front. So I've got the ring of the ear there selected. I'm just not selecting these ones. And then I'm going to just extrude and to my objective layer, extrude backwards a little bit, like that, and start to move these back as well, like that. Because just like before, what I'm looking to do is make landmarks, a very easy geometry I can just merge my stuff into. So I'm going to close off part of the back of the ear as well, because we don't need to have this whole back section exposed, because the ear doesn't go straight into the side of the head, it does have an overlap. So the connection of the ear, if you kind of put your fingers behind your ear and feel about, obviously your ear is kind of like a flap, a fold of flesh, and then it's like a tube which goes into your ear. So we're only going to have like a small opening section. So I'm actually going to grab 2 top face there and a corresponding face there. Bridge. And I've got 1, 2, 3 edges I want to again do another bridge into. Like that. So now I've closed the back of the ear off. And I can then start just moving these edges around to get a fairly good representation of an ear, of what I want to produce. I think Maya's doing another bit of a, yep. So, oh no, okay. So I'm going to do a save now, because Maya looks like, at least for me, it looks like it's going to do another crash or another little freak out in a minute. This is a problem with my version of Maya. This isn't a problem with versions we have at the school, so don't worry. This is just a personal Maya problem. So I'm going to look at my geometry, combine it, so I've got my ear combined to my head, and I'm going to start looking at where I can start getting these edges connected. And this is the bit where, you know, a few choices must be made. So I'm definitely going to put 2 edge loops here on the side of the neck. For one, just keeping the distribution of edges on the neck equal, and give me another little bit of geometry to shape the neck out with, but also to give myself some edges I can start to bridge my ear into. So I could do something like this, I'm just making a bit of a guesswork on this one, so I'm just connected right there. Just put my ear in. Just connecting my ear to my geometry. Trying to think of what I might be doing later on. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do now is just speed up the video and not explain what I'm going to do next, because it really is just looking at these edges, stuff that we've done already before. I'm just going to look at these edges that I've got left and trying to find a way of connecting them and still maintain an edge flow. Because I've definitely got this edge which will be going up to the side of the head, or maybe even up and over the side of the ear, and then into the back of the skull. So this edge here I'm talking about. So this edge might be going up into the side of the head here, or it might be going up and then over here, depending on how I feel. So yeah, I'm gonna just speed up the video and you can see how I approach this. So unfortunately, once again, we've had a recording failure. So this is where I've got up to. This more or less finishing up the head now. It was just laying in these edge flows to the head, connecting the ear to the back of the head, connecting the ear to the front of the head, and sending around some edge flows. So yeah, I'm going to try and explain what I've done. I basically put the ear into position, did some calculated guesswork on how many edges I'll need around the actual connection point in the inside here. I bridged the back of the ear to make a closed surface so that I've actually got some depth to my ear. So it's not just connected directly onto my head, it's actually got some actual 3D form to it. Under the chin, I've been sending around these edge flows under the chin, like here, and that has been going up around the head and down to the eyebrows. Well, I just connected those into the edge flow there. Sending around, coming out the back of the ear, into the back of the neck, like there. Same for this line, that's what I did to there. I actually added another loop here, so that I had enough geometry to connect my ear and I didn't have to do some crazy splitting of edges. Sent this chin strap round to the back of the head, there. So I came under the chin, round above the ear, then into the back of the head. Okay. So the last thing I need to do now majorly is just make the mouth and what we call a mouth bag, which is basically just the internal part of the mouth. So when our character's talking, we're never going to see the internal parts of the face, and then obviously, well, we're never going to see the back side of the polygons, and then subsequently through the polygons and everything. If that ever happens, obviously we're losing the credibility and fidelity of our models. So what we do is create something called a mouth bag, which is simply a bag that we put inside the mouth. Okay, so I'm actually going to select all the edges of the mouth here. I'm going to count how many I've got, and I've got 20 edges here. So I'm going to make a sphere, just a normal 20-sided sphere, and I'm going to take off a good third of it. So I'm going to take about a good third of it off, like that, and maybe even take every other line off as well. but I want to keep the radius to 20. So when I click on it, I'm selecting 20 sides. And last thing I just need to do is select the entire object, go up to mesh display here, and then down to reverse, click that, and then just facing the normals inwards, so that when we texture this, we're going to see the faces we want to see. So I'm just going to rotate that around so it's facing like that. Move it to the center, and then just scale it in. And make some form of throat-like shape. Something like that. Let's move it in. Move it into about there. Like that. So inside we have our little geometry that's going to be our inside of the mouth. So when our character's talking, we can texture some form of interior mouth. Last thing to do is to create the lips, and we've gone in and left this whole section deliberately open so that we can easily just bring in our lips. So I've got my lips selected there. I'm going to do an extrusion and then just scale it in just a little bit. So I don't want to scale it in all the way like that, so we're closing our mouth. I just want to scale in a little bit so we're getting a little bit of internal edge there on the sides, and then I'm going to bring it in like that. You can already see that that's making quite a nice little mouth. And then I can just move it back a little bit just to give it a little bit of internal shape. And then the last thing to do is just make a new edge loop around the side and just bring it in like that. There we go. So again, go to mesh display, soften edges just to get those harsh edges off. And then with the inside, and we might actually want to just delete half the face for this, just to make it a bit easier, because we're going to have to meddle with the inside a little bit. And oh, get rid of that. And also get rid of half of this shape here. Like that. Cool. So now I'm going to combine them two shapes, and then I'm just going to start connecting the faces to the relevant faces. So the top middle line edge, I'm going to start connecting that, and then the bottom to the bottom, connect that, and then do our duplicate special, our bridge trick, where I select the entire ring, take out the two ends there, and boom. And now I can add a line in between, make that a little bit bigger, or even bring it a little bit actually. Yeah. And then that is our mouth bag. And then we can make simple teeth, just like using a cylinder, and then taking half of it off. Oops. And using a shape like that for the front of our teeth, just to, because we're not too worried about having each individual teeth for this. We're just making the actual face itself. But if you did want to make an internal jaw, all you have to do is just make the teeth out of just a half circle, half sphere, cylinder like this, and it's all good. Need to get many duplicates here. So now with that mouth bag in there, we might just want to actually do our eyes as well. So I'm just gonna, got many duplicates from somewhere. I'm just gonna isolate the head, and I'm just going to close the back of the eyes as well. Like that. And then I can go around with the, when I've duplicated the head again. So actually do a mirror merge, nice. Soften the normals, nice. And then I can go around and then start just hardening the edges. I want to be harder. Maybe that, not that one's up there. There we go. Bringing everything back. There you go. And then we can move on to unwrapping and texturing of the head. So I'm sorry that we lost a couple of chunks of modelling. I don't know why the capture kept seizing up on me. Duplicates there as well. There we go. Yeah, I don't know why the capture keeps seizing up on me. It's happened before in other videos. But obviously we'll go over this in class. And the next stage will just be to unwrap the head. And unwrapping the head is super easy. So, there you go.